Americans are in trouble. Over the last 4 years, people have been completely ignored by their own government, and many of these situations have become a matter of life and death. Donald Trump was just elected, and I've been watching closely what he's been doing. It turns out he's been calling on superheroes. Let us start by looking at the current crises we are facing. It is unprecedented in our nation's history to have so many issues going on where people's lives are threatened and the government ignores them. We don't have to go back that far in history to see the shocking contrast with the government response. Do you remember Hurricane Katrina in 2005? It was a hurricane that hit New Orleans. The levees around the city failed, and 80% of the city was flooded for weeks. The FEMA response was a disaster. Dead bodies were left to rot in the streets. Kanye West went on national television and said,
"George Bush doesn't care about black people."
But even though the government's response was a failure, the government still tried their best to address the issues. George W. Bush declared a state of emergency. The Coast Guard was brought in, and they rescued more than 33,500 people. 58,000 National Guard were called in from all 50 states. They brought in FEMA trailers for people to live in. FEMA also paid for hotel costs for 12,000 people. Congress authorized $62.3 billion in aid. There were certainly failures with Katrina, but you cannot say that the government ignored the problem. Contrast that with today, where the government is completely ignoring people who are fighting for their lives. The news is not reporting on this, so I don't think a lot of people realize how bad things are. Let's go through some specific examples, and I think you're going to agree that we need a team of superheroes to clean up this mess. A train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. The train spilled vinyl chloride, which was burned off, sending a poisonous cloud over the town. The Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, did not visit the scene until 3 weeks later. Joe Biden did not visit the scene until a year after the crash. The residents are still suffering from strange medical conditions: diarrhea, dizziness, blurry vision, cognitive issues, seizures, blood in their ears, hair loss, skin lesions, and rashes, among other issues. 3 out of 4 residents reported medical problems after the crash. Tests have been performed that have said that the soil and water is completely free from pollution. Guess who performed the tests? Contractors that were paid for by the train company that caused the disaster. Do you think they had motivation to make their bosses look good? I think that's a conflict of interest. When Joe Biden visited, he announced that he was going to help the residents by telling the National Institutes of Health to perform 6 studies looking into the medical impacts. I'm sorry? He's going to do a study? Why doesn't Joe Biden help these people? In case you forgot, the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, was the organization Dr. Anthony Fauci ran before he retired. If I were these people, I would not want Dr. Fauci's crooked organization anywhere near my healthcare. How are they going to help? Try to give everyone vaccines? Honestly, what would you do if your entire community was poisoned and Dr. Fauci turned up at your home to offer you some health advice? I think these people need a little more help than an NIH study. Speaking of Dr. Fauci, there are still so many Americans suffering from the effects of the shots given during the pandemic. The CDC has confirmed that potential side effects include allergic reactions, heart problems, and nerve damage. I have personally had family members who have suffered from these shots. People with injuries have received no help and are left to address these issues on their own. The government does have a program to compensate people for vaccine injuries, but they have become overwhelmed from requests. Congress just released a report reviewing issues from the pandemic. They found that the current backlog would take nearly a decade to eliminate without accounting for any new claims. It is going to take the government 10 years to respond to your request for help. People are in pain and suffering. People need help now. Do you remember the wildfire in Hawaii? It completely destroyed the town of Lahaina in one of the most deadly disasters in U.S. history. In response, Joe Biden agreed to give each household affected a check for $700. To put this in perspective, Joe Biden has given $183 billion to Ukraine. Some of the Ukraine money is being used to support pensions for 8 million Ukrainians. Why are we paying for their retirement plans, but only giving $700 to our own citizens in Hawaii? It has also been reported that the Ukrainian President Zelensky's mother-in-law just purchased a $4.8 million mansion on the coast of Egypt. Since this news story broke, the real estate developer has released a statement claiming they are not aware of any property owned by Zelensky or any of his family members. What do you think? Who do you believe? What an odd purchase for someone in the middle of a war zone. I wonder if any of that was paid for by the $183 billion we are sending them. Meanwhile, the people in Lahaina need help. The amount of people living below the poverty line has doubled since the fires. Unemployment has risen from 2% to 14%, and 20% of people say their income has dropped more than half. People are struggling, and they need more help than $700. North Carolina recently experienced devastating flooding from Hurricane Helene. People have lost everything. Many of you watching this video just enjoyed Thanksgiving with your families. Many of the people in North Carolina celebrated Thanksgiving while living in tents. It is freezing temperatures, and these people are trying to figure out how to survive, sometimes without power or running water. To make matters worse, it seems like the government is actually conspiring against the survivors. Here is video of a Black Hawk helicopter hovering over a facility collecting donations for the victims. The helicopter is flying low and destroying the donations. The helicopter crew has been placed on leave during an investigation, but they are claiming it was all just an accident. Now, if there's anyone out there who knows anything about helicopters, is this something that normally happens? Does a helicopter just accidentally hover above the ground, destroying everything underneath? It seems kind of unlikely to me. I think they are lying. I think they were doing it on purpose. This is happening at the same time another incident by FEMA was revealed from the next hurricane, Milton, in Florida. A FEMA supervisor was fired after telling her staff to avoid helping any survivors with Trump signs outside their homes. This actually happened. She claims she was actually just following orders from her superiors.
Let's bring in the FEMA official who was fired over the incident, but claims she has been made a scapegoat. Marnie Washington. Marnie, thank you so much for coming on. You are simply doing your job and following your orders. So you're telling me these orders came from somebody above?
Correct. When I first reported to Florida, I was already on another team. I was there as a specialist. This was the culture. They were already avoiding these homes based on community trends from hostile political encounters.
Why would they come down so hard on you? Why are you the scapegoat? Why are you the one they're saying was, quote, reprehensible for actually putting this in place when you did not put this in place?
What's reprehensible is they're not being transparent. Why is this coming down on me? I am the person that jotted down the notes from my superiors, and my notation in Teams chat was exposed from their surge capacity team. That's exactly what happened, and it's easy to then say, well, haha, it's her name, it's her writing.
Right.
Make her accountable for it. But I'm just simply executing, again, what was coming down from my superiors.
Right.
Is it possible that FEMA is being weaponized against Republicans? I don't understand why our government is not helping these people in North Carolina. Why are they still living in tents in the freezing cold weather? I'm worried about these people freezing to death. One other thing I want to show you. When someone was returning to their home after the floods, they found a Bible wrapped around a pole outside their home.
So This Bible was found after the flood from Hurricane Helene.
Stuck on this fence post.
And it is on
Open to
Revelation 14 and 15.
Of all the things destroyed, that was left open. And it's sitting there and we're not touching it, so.
This house was buried and flooded all the way to the roof originally. The man that lived here had to be rescued off of the roof by a raft. And they were just emptying it, just demoing the entire house. And this Bible was found on a pole, open to Revelation.
I do not believe that it is a coincidence that the Bible was open to Revelation. I think the people in North Carolina need some help. To be fair to the government, they did offer to give the people $750.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like.
But it turns out that not everyone gets the $750. You have to apply for it, and then FEMA decides who's going to get the money. I hope they don't make that decision based on who has Trump signs in front of their house. If you get rejected for the $750, they may offer you different types of funds, which include loans, which you would have to pay back. It seems like a lot of people are receiving nothing. No help at all. I continue to cover the political prisoners from the protests at the Capitol. I have talked multiple times about the Supreme Court decision to overturn any 1512c2 charges. That means that anyone who was a peaceful protester is innocent and should not have gone to jail. But we are months later, and people are still waiting for their convictions to be overturned. Why are the liberal judges in Washington, D.C. ignoring the Supreme Court? These defendants' lives have been ruined. The Justice Department has gone after grandmothers and raided the homes of families, all for charges that should not have been brought in the first place. These people need help to get back on their feet, and they also need compensation for wrongful imprisonment. This is another group of people who has been viciously attacked by their own government, and they need help. Floods of illegal immigrants have crossed the border. Crime has skyrocketed in the U.S., and we continue to hear tragic stories of people who have been raped and murdered by illegal immigrants. There are so many horrible stories of Americans who have become victims. These are images from police body cam footage of the police stopping an illegal immigrant from raping a woman. The video is too graphic, so I can't show it. As the police tackle the suspect, the woman is screaming, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus." Here's another story. This is an American who lives in New York. He raised his dog from a puppy to 2 years old. He became friends with a migrant who was living in his neighborhood. This illegal immigrant became angry one day. He broke into the man's apartment and threw the dog off a 14th floor balcony, killing the dog as it hit the sidewalk below. The migrant has served no jail time and has been released on bail. These are some of the people we are dealing with. Someone who is so cruel that they would throw a dog off a 14th floor balcony. I hope you are beginning to understand the situation this country is in. Am I the only person who is mad about this? I'm furious. How did we let our country get like this? I just showed you 6 examples of life and death situations we are facing right now. This country needs some superheroes. There is one organization who is at the center of all of this, America's chief crime-fighting agency, the FBI. Except the FBI is not doing anything to solve the problems. In fact, they're making things worse. The FBI is the organization that was spying on Catholics at church, targeting parents at school board meetings, raiding the homes of pro-life activists, hiding evidence of the Hunter Biden laptop, and doctoring evidence to frame Donald Trump for crimes he did not commit. Why are they doing all of that instead of actually fighting crime? Someone needs to clean house at the FBI. And I think that Donald Trump may have found a superhero to do just that. His name is Kash Patel. Donald Trump just appointed Kash Patel as the new director of the FBI. Kash Patel is a lawyer. He has been both a defense attorney and a trial attorney working for the Department of Justice. He has held multiple positions in both Democrat and Republican administrations. He has been an outspoken critic of the corruption within the FBI. He was the primary author of the Nunes memo, which exposed FBI corruption during the Russia hoax. The memo showed that Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for a fake report to frame Donald Trump, and the FBI worked with the Democrats to obtain illegal FISA warrants.
Look, prosecution 101, follow the money. You know, once we got down the road of this investigation, I was like, Devin, somebody has to fork up money to pay for this stuff, right? No one's just doing it out of their goodwill. And so let's follow the money. And it's got to be a decent amount of money in order to put all this stuff together. So we had a source who turned us on to a bank and basically said, look, you might want to look here and look at their banking transactions to see if there's a connection between Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele and the DNC somehow. So we started piecing that together. What we got was Fusion telling us, we're taking you to federal court because we don't want you to have that subpoena power over us. That's when I knew we had hit it.
Kash Patel is also a groundbreaker in being the first Indian American to hold such high-level positions.
It's amazing because I think you were the first minority person to hold a number of very high-level posts.
Yeah, so I think this will shock people. One, I spent more time in the Obama administration than I did the Trump, which is just, I think, funny in retrospect. But I'm the first person of color to run counterterrorism for any White House. I'm the first person of color to be the number 2 in the intelligence community at the Office of Director of National Intelligence. And I'm the first minority to be the chief of staff for the Department of Defense. And that all happened under President Trump.
Now, Kash Patel would be taking over at the FBI at a time when the American people's faith in the FBI is plummeting.
Look, I think Patel has real reason to believe that Americans would go along with changes that he might potentially make at the FBI, and there's a reason why Donald Trump feels like he can make this change. It's because if you look here, FBI is doing an excellent or good job. Look at this time trend line. You go back to 2014, right? It was 59% of Americans, then 57% in 2019, 50% in 2022. Look at where we are today. My goodness gracious, just 41% of Americans think the FBI is doing an excellent or good job. That is by far the lowest number this century.
41%? That's unbelievable. Americans want the FBI to be reformed. Let me explain why I think Kash Patel is the right person to do it. When I first started looking into Kash Patel, my obvious first question is, why does this guy care so much? Why does he care about right and wrong? And how did he become so good at uncovering corruption? I discovered that he has an interesting origin story. His father used to live in Uganda in the 1970s. At the time, Uganda was under the control of a military dictator named Idi Amin. He is considered one of the most brutal dictators in modern history. To understand how bad this guy was, he murdered somewhere between 100,000 and 500,000 of his own people. One of the things he did was to kick all Indians out of Uganda. Kash Patel's father fled, first to Canada and then to America, where Kash Patel was born. This family knows what it means to be discriminated against. They know what it means to live under a tyrannical dictatorship. And they know what it means to run for your life. Kash Patel grew up in a house in Queens with his father's 8 brothers and sisters. They all lived in one house. Now, we don't exactly know what happened to Kash growing up, but it is clear that his father taught him some important lessons. A love for this country, the difference between right and wrong, and most importantly, the courage to stand up for what you believe in. I think Kash Patel is secretly a superhero who is fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. Kash Patel has a superpower. It is the power to uncover corruption. And yes, that is a superpower, because no one else in Washington, D.C. seems to be able to do it. Donald Trump is calling him in to clean house at the FBI.
Kash, how do you believe Americans will regain trust in our most important law enforcement agencies?
One thing. Exposure of corruption. Put out the documents, put out the evidence. We only have gotten halfway down the Russiagate hole. The people need to know that their FBI is restored by knowing full well what they did to unlawfully surveil them. The people need to know that there has been a de-weaponization, a defanging of the Department of Justice, and their houses of worship will no longer be raided. But they need to be shown the documents that said this was the reasoning they weaponized justice. And that, in my opinion, is how Congress can most importantly secure the trust or resecure the trust of these agencies and departments.
I don't know what you think, but that sounds pretty good to me. Let me just show you one example of Kash Patel talking about much needed reforms at the FBI.
One of the other whistleblowers that came forward was on Dan Bongino's show is that he literally said, wait till you see the acts of sexual complicity that the 7th floor at the FBI was engaging during this entire time. And I was the guy that exposed, the Lisa Page, Peter Strzok thing, because I know how that organization at that level with the political operatives work. So there's a lot more coming.
Acts of sexual complicity? He's talking about the 7th floor of the FBI. That is where all the most senior people at the FBI have their offices. What are they doing? Are they all having sex with each other? He talked specifically about the sex scandal between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. These were central characters in the Russia hoax. They were senior FBI agents who were sleeping together while framing Donald Trump. These are text messages they sent each other. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? No, he won't. We'll stop it. Now we're finding out that they were not the only people at the FBI engaging in sexual acts. What else was happening on the 7th floor at the FBI? Maybe they should stop having so much sex with each other and start actually fighting crime. Someone needs to figure this out. But Kash Patel has run into some trouble. Since his appointment, a shadowy organization has emerged to fight him, called MSNBC. This is what they had to say.
And Kash Patel, of course, is a person who infamously said he was going to jail reporters and journalists and news people.
They said he's going to jail reporters and journalists. Let me play for you the conversation with Steve Bannon they are referring to.
And the people that did these evil deeds will be held accountable and prosecuted, criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order of the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
Now, what do you think? Was Kash Patel talking about trying to shut down the media? Or was he talking about holding people accountable for committing crimes? Let's talk about what Kash Patel has actually done for journalists. In 2020, Kash Patel was working in counterterrorism for the Trump administration. He went on a secret mission to save journalist Austin Tice, who was being held by terrorists in Syria. Austin Tice was a former Marine and journalist who disappeared while reporting in Syria in 2012. He had been held for years in a terrorist prison. No high-level U.S. official had spoken with the Syrian government in more than a decade. Kash Patel personally flew to Damascus to meet with the Syrian government. Just so you understand what happened, Kash Patel could have been captured. He could have been thrown in prison himself. He risked his own life to try and save this journalist. Now, unfortunately, the Syrian government refused to release Austin Tice. To this day, Austin Tice is still being held in a terrorist prison cell. But that did not stop Kash Patel. He went on to save 50 Americans who were being held captive around the world and bring them home to their families. That is what Kash Patel is doing for journalists. Why isn't MSNBC reporting on that? It sounds to me like MSNBC is a bunch of liars. I don't understand why people have to watch my small YouTube channel to get the news about what is actually going on. There's no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump made the right decision to call in a superhero like Kash Patel to run the FBI. But I have to point out that Donald Trump has made a mistake. I have no problem calling Donald Trump out when I think he's doing something wrong. Donald Trump's problem is that he needs to hire even more superheroes. Kash Patel needs more help to fight against the deep state. American lives are at stake, and we're running out of time. Does Donald Trump have a bat signal at Mar-a-Lago that he can shine out over the ocean or something? We need more superheroes. In fact, there is one superhero that Donald Trump has not yet called to be a part of his team. This is someone who has the abilities necessary to save American lives. That superhero is someone named Scott Presler. During the election, Scott Presler was a major force on the ground in Pennsylvania registering new voters. He reached out to people who had never voted before, from the Amish community to frat boys. Scott Presler is not someone with money. He doesn't have power. He just saw things that needed to be done, and he jumped in and helped. To give you a sense of this, when there was an attack on Donald Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, Scott Presler was there registering people to vote. Donald Trump returned a second time to Butler, Pennsylvania, and Scott Presler was there again.
I mean, today is a historic day in American history. You have a president returning to the site of an assassination attempt. That takes serious guts and bravery for him to come here, and I think it shows us ultimately Trump is here for us. This isn't about Donald Trump. This is about saving America. The big thing, that the scandal that happened, is the Department of State scheduled maintenance on their voter registration website today. That would have been at 6 p.m. with Trump speaking at 5 p.m., but we alerted the entire nation that this was going on, and we forced them to change it. So it went from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. to now 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'm still not happy, but it shows you the Democrats are looking, this is a war of attrition. They're going to try to pull votes from us in any way that they can, and it shows the importance of registering to vote, of checking your status, and of voting on Tuesday, November 5th for Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance.
So the Democrats in the Secretary of State's office were taking down the voter registration website for maintenance at the same time as this massive Trump rally. Scott Presler saw this, took to social media, and shamed them into moving their maintenance schedule so that people could still sign up to vote. How horrible is it that government officials would try something like this? Whatever happened to government officials providing services to people no matter who they vote for? Scott Presler took initiative and is one of the reasons why the Republicans won Pennsylvania. To show you the impact Scott Presler had on people's lives, a few weeks before the election, Scott Presler posted this tweet: "Praying that my tires hold out as I travel 5 hours from Western Pennsylvania to Eastern Pennsylvania." When people saw his post, they started a GoFundMe page for him and started raising money to get him a new car. Over 2,000 people donated, and they were able to buy him a new SUV. When they picked up the car, Scott Presler said he was so happy he could fit an entire Amish family in it and take them to the polls. We need more superheroes like Scott Presler fighting for the American people. Why hasn't Donald Trump called him? Here's a list of Trump appointees. I do not see Scott Presler on there. Has Scott Presler been overlooked? Donald Trump could literally hire him to do anything, and I'm sure he would do an incredible job. He could hire him to be the chief garbage man, because you know Scott Presler would take out the trash. Scott Presler is a superhero, and Donald Trump needs to let us know that he's going to continue to work with him. If I had the chance to give Donald Trump some advice, I would share with him something that someone told me once. With great power comes great responsibility. I will continue to monitor the situation and report on what happens. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that Donald Trump should hire more superheroes? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you find my videos helpful, consider signing up for a monthly membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, your support helps me to keep making these videos. I want to give a big thank you to all new members who have signed up. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.